Yeah, baby, we back.
All right, I think we're good. Haven't seen it come up on the screen. It says we're live. Hopefully we won't have any more technical difficulties. Hopefully you're hearing us out of both ears. We got some complaints last time, so just trying to fix those little things. And the streaming quality should be a little better, so no more choppy video.
Yeah.
Okay, all that stuff aside. Yeah, we can start. It's Friday, about 2 o'clock. We just want to talk about. I want to talk about how excited I am for training, like this week and last week. Well, last week a little bit.
Right.
Looked at the whiteboard. I was talking to Joaquin a little bit earlier, and Joaquin came up to me. He's like, he's doing a competition, like a qualifier competition right now. So he's like, I was looking at the whiteboard, and he's like, this is the stuff that we used to do. This is what I remember from like the old gym, and back in the years of 2012 through 2016 or something like that.
Yeah.
Where training has just been very varied, a little more fun, way more difficult in a different way. Like you come in and there's a different challenge on the board versus thrusters and burpees.
Yep.
Or rowing and burpees, or wall balls and power cleans, whatever it might be. I feel like we really got stuck in like a rut of just, okay, I'm really bad at machines, or I'm really bad at like monostructural work, so let's go do all this aerobic capacity stuff and or these very simple CrossFit movements. Let's just do a ton of reps of this barbell work or this open style workouts, where you can get lost in that. And I think like we got lost in that for a little bit. Like the workouts are hard and training's difficult, but the CrossFit Games this past year is it's like refreshed everything for me. It's like it hit my reset button, and I'm like loving training lately. It's been so good. Like
clear as day too.
Yes.
Like you can see it.
Yeah.
You can see it on your face. You can see it. You kind of experience it at the gym. Sort of. I'm wondering what the other affiliates, sort of energy is like. I wonder if anybody else agrees with you, where like they watch that and it's sort of, refresh that in them.
I mean, so I make everybody in the gym do the CrossFit Games workouts the next week, or at least a couple of them. Like I'll pick or choose a few of the good ones and I'll make them do it. And I posted about that and we talked about it a little bit. We got some pushback, like people shouldn't, those workouts are too hard or something. Or
somebody said that?
No, I'm just saying like people will think that.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Maybe other gyms might think that, but like I think it's absolutely necessary to test yourself in some of those capacities and just to see what you can do. Because one, CrossFit's universally scalable, remember?
Yeah.
Like anybody can do these workouts.
100%.
CrossFit Games workouts, like I had them try the elevated Elizabeth workout. Well, we don't have parallel bars, so we didn't have people walking across parallel bars, but they can do some form of dip and squat clean.
Mm-hmm.
And with the rep scheme, it was a little bit different. It was varied. It was a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
Really challenging. It stuck a 15-minute time cap on there, and it's like not many people finished, but they worked.
I really
hard.
enjoyed that workout too.
Yeah.
Like that was, and all right, here's to Joaquin's point and to a little bit of what you're saying. I walked in, I saw that workout on the board and was excited. Mm-hmm. New, fresh, super challenging, and also maybe more selfishly too, where I'm like, well, I'm way more prepared for this than I am for like a really high work capacity type workout right now, just due to the nature of how much time I have to train. Mm-hmm. However, like the squat cleans and the dips, the dip specifically, obviously, everybody's been squat clean, but like that didn't throw me off. Like a high rep dip was fine. And it was exciting. It was thrilling. Mm-hmm.
Here's another thing. We have like 2 dip bars, and they fit on those old rogue rigs that we have, so they don't even fit on our new rogue rigs.
Right.
So we had to MacGruber a bunch of different, MacGyver, whatever you call it, a bunch of different stations, so people they were doing dips between the GHDs. They were doing dips off of boxes that had dumbbells on the top of them. They were doing dips off the benches where they're just elevated their feet and they would just do dips. But everybody's going through that workout or that range of motion or that experience or whatever it is at the same time together. It's cool. And they, after just seeing it at the games, because most people have some recollection of the games, or they see some of the events. If you're in the CrossFit space, you kind of watch it and pay attention. Like you said, it's fun. Like when you see it on the board, it's like, oh yeah, cool. I've seen that one before. Let me go see how I do it, or how I stack up.
And I like the high skill test, like that muscle failure test. Like you don't see that. We don't get that a lot anymore. Like actual muscle failure. Like you can hit real muscle failure on dips. Like for real.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the last thing I remember sort of like this, I guess you could go back and it would have been the pegboard was like the thing that just was like, oh man, I don't have the
you do one or
ability
two.
to do this.
Yeah, you do one or two,
Yeah.
and you're just like.
And then
done.
before that was the legless rope climb, you know, so I don't know.
There.
It was fun. It was really fun.
Mm-hmm. But I love to make them do the workouts, and I'll go through them with them, and I'll do a couple of them, you know.
Yeah.
Or I'll do them. If I program the workout for the gym, I've already done it where I want to do it, and then we'll do it that day. But I think it's important to make people do those workouts.
To be, you know, fully honest and fully transparent, I look forward to after the games because I know what workouts are coming. I don't ever look forward to post regionals workouts. Like I fear the regionals workouts way more than I do the games workouts.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
This is why.
Yeah, tell me why.
Because it's a third of the test, so it has to be just like it's like.
Oh, because you only get 6 events.
You only get 6 events.
So they're much less specialized.
They're just mean and
Mm-hmm.
brutal. They used to be mean and brutal. Like really make you think twice about doing something.
Mm-hmm. That's what I like getting into. Like if I'm programming well and like being creative with my thought process and writing down workouts and stuff, I get to that point in a workout with like tire flips and farmer's carries.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you program it well, and you just get to that point of like either failure to do a movement or like you hit a wall with it, and you just got to grind through that movement.
Yeah.
And that movement might be like something completely different, something outside the box, like a double kettlebell clean and jerk. You don't see very often, or an L sit hold with a run. You know, CrossFit posted that on the main site a little while ago. It's like it's just opened up so many different avenues that you can experiment with when in your training.
What do you think about this thought that CrossFit had to come back to this direction, or not that it had to, that it was naturally going to happen, that CrossFit was going to go the way that it went and all of the way that the games was going up to this point, and it was going to hit a place where I had the thought maybe 5 minutes ago where it was like it evolved to where it was, and then it's not that it's gone back to its roots, but this was almost like only the next place that it could go was back to this type of place.
What was the next place? Only place it could go if it didn't want to fail.
Yes.
Like if it didn't want to continue down the path that it was on, which it could have turned at any point. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah. Do you think? See, what I think we're talking about is the pattern that CrossFit will always be an avenue in which that would be figured out. Like it's going to present itself. So you have the choice not to do so. Like they had you have the choice to continue down the same path.
Mm-hmm.
But it seemed not that wasn't happening, or that it wasn't growing, or that it wasn't gaining traction, or like. And granted, 2020 and 2021 were very weird years. I think people forget, honestly, I think they forget how psychologically manipulated you were during that time. In whatever way. It was just the case. Your mind was under attack. You were removed from the space you were normally used to be in. You couldn't see anyone's face. That's a huge thing. That's a big thing,
mm-hmm.
right? And then you had to fill this new sort of potentiality in your mind of trying to project out is this life now?
Yeah.
And that
because everybody does that a little bit.
Yeah, that rocked a lot of people. So you get the games, right, where it's 5 people went, and it was 5 guys, 5 girls, and it's is this what this is now?
Mm-hmm.
Do I check out?
It was cool that they did anything.
Right.
Right.
So right. And then you get to the next year, and then you still have the lingering, COVID tomfoolery, sort of
We're gonna get canceled. You just said COVID.
Oh goodness. And you had that whole situation last year, with those poor girls, and it's enough of that. But the point being, now we're 2022, and it's like, holy smokes, what is this new energy that has arrived? Was it inevitable? Was it Boz? Was it, Dave's got stale? Like, was it 2021 and 2022 just like straight up freaking warfare in your head that is, clouding judgment and vision? I don't know, but something happened where I watched every second of the games, and I hadn't done that in years.
Did you watch because of the events, or did you watch because of the athletes? Did you watch just because it felt like it was going down that route that you're talking about, like kind of like a refreshing of the...
I watched for one reason. Laura.
Okay.
And then I didn't stop. It was like, oh, Laura is about to go. Shout out to Danny. I rock with Danny. Danny trains here too. She's here. That's my dog too. I don't see Danny as much as I see Laura. Just our paths don't cross as much. So I was really like paying attention, like, oh, Laura's about to go. I'm gonna watch her go. And then her first heat went in that first event, and then I was like, I guess I'll watch the next one. And then that stream just stayed on until the stream ended, and then when it started the next day, it stayed on the whole time. And it was like I was back in 2013. Like, legitimately felt like I was catapulted back to a space that I had known and been in and remembered, like warning my wife about games week, of being like, hey, don't expect a ton of me. Like, give me this week off. I'd like to be a vegetable.
Good luck with that.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
And
was it like the tests make that the tests make something special that you want to see how the athletes stack up to it or do it or perform, like, you know what I mean? Like, if
yes.
The test is something special, I'm going to want to watch no matter who's doing it. Like, I want to see what happens, see if somebody's capable of it. Yeah, okay.
100%. That's
so interesting how much the programming can play into the season, the future of the sport, the direction, everything. I mean...
Right, and I don't think that, like, you need to do, like, all of this, like, cheeky new things, but just the example of, like, just the handstand push-ups being wall facing, even just the wall, even if it was strict on the ground wall facing, normal strict handstand push-ups, I still would have wanted to watch, be like, oh shoot, is this going to trip some people up? Mm-hmm. That's new. It's like brand new. I know nobody's testing that. I know no one's doing handstand push-ups like that. For sure.
Yeah.
Like, it's like,
how many
I know
variations can you do before it becomes that thing that's too much, or that's outside the box too much?
Like, you could, like, for instance, like, do the muscle-up biathlon, but make everyone do a ring dip in between muscle-ups or something. That sounds stupid.
Judging nightmare.
The thing that I was just thinking of right there was how would have been, like, how unfamiliar your body would be to having to do a dip in between every ring muscle up.
Sure.
It would just be so new.
Yeah, when I think about something like that, I think about a workout that you might get in. Like, remember your first time doing Fran?
Yes.
Like, you look at it and you're like, I got this.
No.
You get into the round of 15 and you crumble and you fall apart. Because this stimulus is just a new stimulus that you're not familiar with.
Yes.
And the games normally does that to athletes, and then you really test, like, their grit. You test, like, their ability to endure. You test their mental capacity to hang on or to compete against an opponent or the workout. You know what I mean? Like, it tests you in a lot of different ways. It stretches you in different ways than just, like, Fran in the gym.
This just popped into my mind. Ben Smith story time, everybody. Can you tell us about the run at the ranch when the
first one?
They flew you out for that second one, or was that? Yeah, when they flew everyone out. I guess it's 2016 games.
Yeah, I think
the
it
last
was
year.
The first day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What about it?
How was that event?
So the first time I did it in 2009, that was like that first experience doing Fran. So that was my first experience doing Fran. I died on the backside of the hill somewhere. I think I ended up just standing there, sucking wind, dirt all in my lungs.
How far was it again?
I think it was only like 7K, maybe 7 or 8K, something like that. It wasn't like the length of it, but it started out with a mile on the flat, and everybody just kicked it. And then you hit this hill, and the hill is like, it doesn't look that bad, and then when you start running it, it just continues to climb and get steeper and steeper. And I'm walking a minute into that hill. Like, you're not even making it like a minute up the hill. And that was like that first time doing Fran. Like, you hit that and you're like, crap, I have never trained this. I've never experienced like anything like that. So then from that point on, I did hill runs. I would go to any treadmill. I would usually use a treadmill, and I would do Tabata. 3 or 4 Tabatas back to back, right? With like a minute or two rest in between. Sometimes I would do like squats in between, right? But I would do 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off on a treadmill, high as you can go, incline, at just a steady pace. And I would sometimes increase pace, sometimes I'd play with the pace or whatever. And I would just get used to running hills like that, because I'm like, this might come up again. Because you think the games are going to be in that place again. Like, I didn't know if it was going to be in somewhere else. And they always have you running hills at some point. We had the berm run, even in Carson, even in the soccer stadium, we were running stairs. So I would do that. I would run 3 intervals of Tabata on a treadmill with like a minute break. And then during the break, I would do squats or something. And then I would do stairs, at stadium stairs. And I would just go run stadium stairs, like 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever. I would just run laps in stadium stairs just to get used to that feeling. And then when they did it back in 2016, I was able to run the whole hill. Like, I did the mile, hit the hill, push the whole way up,
Right.
And then I would turn it into a Tabata, because that's what I was familiar with. And you fall back on your training. Like, when you're competing in the games, you don't ever do something amazing. You only fall back to the level that you've trained at.
That's it. Super interesting.
Yeah.
So you fall back to your level of training, and then do you get to transcend that at all? Do you just like...
There are moments,
you find
maybe.
like maybe a new gear or something, and that's what, brings the, cream to the top or something, but...
Yeah. I think there's moments of that for sure. Like, you'll experience some sort of flow state moment where you're just in it and you're not thinking about anything else, and you're just so focused on that task at hand that you can perform maybe better than you would in the gym. But for the most part, the CrossFit Games, the test gets you to the point where you fall back on your level of training, because it's like everybody might feel really good the first day, maybe the second day, but like 3 days, 3, 4, and 5, you better believe you're just falling back to the level that you normally train at. And that's why it's important to train hard, and that's why it's important to try to be constantly expanding your horizons and your boundaries and your abilities, and testing yourself in as many different ways as you can. Because the games usually takes you outside of your comfort zone, and then you have to fall back on what's familiar.
Right.
Like, if I drop you in the ocean, you never practice swimming, or you only practice doggy paddle.
Right.
And I drop someone else in the ocean, and they only practice freestyle. It's like they're probably going to beat you back to the shore, but you're both going to be able to swim. So it's like I'm going to try to do as many strokes as I can, learn how to swim, maneuver in the water the best, breathe the best, be the most efficient, be the most relaxed. All of these things play into the CrossFit Games and how you compete during the week of the games.
Do you think that when you fall back in that on that training, like, do you have any like vivid memories of like something that sticks out, like where you're kind of like, you feel like you're sinking, like you could use that, and you're like, wait, I've been here before, like, I could pick that bar back up or something. Is that what you're describing, or what are you?
I'll give you an example, like the Burden Run in 2014, I don't remember. The Burden Run.
The Burden Run was the year you won.
Mm-mm.
Oh no, that's 2013. Sorry.
Yeah, it was before. So the Burden Run was a little bit before that. I don't remember if it started out with like 2 miles or 2.5 miles, something like that, and then you got to the pig, and you had to flip the pig 100 yards, and then you had to carry a log, and then you had to drag a sled to finish.
Yep.
So it was like the Capitol, right? But the Capitol, I think, was like a variation that was an evolved version that was a little higher up. That was a way cooler finish. Like the finish at the Capitol was cool.
Right.
The finish in the stadium with the sled, because you would run in the stadium and you'd see the first person that ran in the stadium was in first place. I think it was Jason.
Yeah.
And then I think I was right behind him. But it was very cool, finishing like that too with the sled to the finish line, right?
Yeah.
'Cause the sled was super heavy.
Mm-hmm.
You pull sleds, but it's like it was different. Like this, I'd never seen that sled before. I didn't know how it was going to move.
Right.
You had straps, and you strap them around your shoulder, and you just run with them. But like, for example, the pig flips. You get to the pig flips, and it's like, okay, you've done movements of this, whether it's a clean and jerk for 100 reps,
Mm-hmm.
or a power clean for 100 reps that's 225,
Mm-hmm.
or a ton of deadlifts, or a ton of whatever. Like you've practiced that repeated effort for like a sustained repeated effort. That you can fall back on, like your level of pain tolerance, let's say, or
Right.
something like that. Your capacity, you fall back on your capacity to perform that movement, which is a pig flip. So staying efficient for a long period of time. Like we used to do a ton of workouts where it's very high volume, short intervals where you're sprinting and resting and sprinting and resting, and you're used to going hard and then pulling back and resting, and in 10 seconds you can recover and you can do another flip. And it's just a matter of staying, a second, picking up the thing a second before the other person, and then by the end of 100 yards you're way ahead, something like that. And then you get to the carry on the log or something like that, and the log, you start running and you're like, my breathing's kind of under control, you start walking and you're like, my breathing's pretty under control, let me try running for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then you run for 20 or 30 steps and you're like, all right, I can do like 50 steps, and then I'll walk 10, and then I'll do 50, and then I'll walk 10. And you can play these games with yourself during the event to just get the most out of your body.
Right.
That's what I like to do. So that's kind of where my mind is. It's like a big game to me.
Yeah.
And I try to see what I'm capable of, but like then I fall back on that Tabata. It's like you're used to the 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off. So you're used to working like that in
Right.
that capacity. So you fall back on your training.
Man, what an underrated training tool.
Yeah, and I'll say one more thing. I've always trained for the CrossFit Games, so I don't train for the Open or the regionals.
Correct.
I always train for the CrossFit Games, and then I would just happen to make it there because my fitness level is high enough,
Mhm.
right? And the last however many years, it's like we've been training for the regionals because I can't make it to the CrossFit Games.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you're flip-flop, and I think that's why things have gotten stale, and it's like the games reawaken that.
It's definitely that's a really good point. Because there was a little bit what I was thinking a second ago where I'm like, man, we really have been stuck, it seems like, in this weird, like, work capacity space, almost.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. But now I want to get outside of that and be like, okay, let me take that work capacity and see what I can do with it in all these different ways again. Like, get creative with it again.
I feel like,
Not that we weren't creative with it, but like that it's just more as possible.
yeah, but we weren't doing a ton of, like, very, I want to say fun things. Like, we used to do a lot of, like, random, like, I used to try and think, like, I would legitimately fall asleep thinking, let me try and come up with the most obscure, out there thing to present to Ben as an idea for us to do tomorrow that's not on his radar, so that he doesn't have to have this on his radar, but he has it in his tool belt. Like, one day I was like, hey, you want to carry, that med ball
Yeah, we used to do those a lot.
for, a mile or two or whatever it is. We'd just switch back and forth, and walk as far as you can.
Well, you better believe something like that builds capacity, but it builds capacity in a different way.
Bro,
It also gets you out of that rut of like, okay, I'm squatting today, I'm power cleaning today, I'm snatching today,
Yeah.
I'm overhead. Like it's like the same. I'm doing muscle ups today. It's like, let me get you outside of that and in as many ways as possible. Like you still have a base. Like you still have this foundation of movements that you stick with, but the variations within those can be the thing that changes. And the further away you are from the games, the more variation you can have. That's why I like this. I think that's why I like this time too, because it's kind of like the off season.
Yeah.
So you just can kind of experiment with more variation in your training.
Yeah. It's like a fun thing to observe, that's for sure. What is something that you've done that's been, just get like an example of something this week, maybe, when looking at the board?
Oh, I haven't done look at the board. Like we've had the yoke.
Did you do the yoke?
We've had the yoke
tire flip.
Oh, this morning. This morning.
Bench press workout.
So this morning workout, we did 25 tire flips. We started and ended with 25 tire flips. And in between, we did 1 up to 10 of dumbbell bench press with 80 pounds and front squats from the floor at 225. So each time you had to pick the bar up from the floor and do the front squats, but tire flips before and after. And I didn't think that the second set of tire flips were the work. They were awful. It was the workout. Even though like the front squats at 225 from the floor with the large volume, like 1 to 10, that's a lot of reps, which added up. But just working through something like that was such a, like the tire flips get your heart rate up, get you breathing really hard, and
they
also tax you.
They get your
sneaky.
breathing so high. Like for real, your heart rate just gets jacked after like 4. But it's weird though. How do you feel about this statement? I don't feel like I could do them fast enough to where like I would have to slow down.
I did that today.
Okay.
That's what I mean. You know what I mean? I got like on that second set, I started out like the same pace as my first set. Died.
Yeah.
But like you test yourself there and you try to push
Right.
through that, and it's like that's when I know I'm stretching myself that day.
Right. But coming back to the previous conversation, you would know not to do that in an event at the games because it would pay off more to do those tire flips a second and a half slower each rep to not stop.
I might pace myself a little bit more, yeah.
Okay.
But you play games with people next to you, you know, and you could try to keep up with somebody or follow somebody or stay ahead of somebody or whatever.
Right.
And you have your fitness level to fall back on. But
I did that workout yesterday, which is hilarious, but this is what I did. I started with 25 tire flips. I did 10 dumbbell bench, 80 pounds, 10 strict pull-ups, because it's a strict pull-up challenge. And then I went 10 to 1, like that. That's like my go-to. Whenever I'm like, I don't want to do what's on the board today, I'll just go 10 to 1. Bench, straight pull-up.
Bench pull-up is classic.
Always.
It's so good.
And then, but the tire flip was like perfect to like supplement that sweat, hard breathing thing. You just put it right at the end, 25 before, 25 after. It was nasty.
Right, it
was nasty.
It adds the work capacity element. It adds to it is so good. You don't need a lot of warming up for it.
Nope.
It's very straightforward. Not a lot of skill, but you still have to be efficient.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a good addition.
Tire flips are something that I call deathbed movements. Ben hears me say this a lot, but like certain things where it's like, yes, you could take me off my deathbed and I'd be able to do that. And like one of those things is like snatch 225. Like you should. And this comes from a place like when I grew up, there was this guy that lived down the street from us. His name was Mr. Woody. He turned his whole basement into a workout center. He used to train high school athletes. His wife, his whole family are state champions, high school state champions. He was a state champion football player. His wife has won like 7 to 10 or so state championship field hockey titles, and then both his daughters were state champion field hockey players. So Mr. Woody, we would go in his basement. He said that he used to do CrossFit workouts before CrossFit was ever a thing. Like you would have, just like max effort at a station, 1 minute stations, there's 20 stations, you went through and just anything and everything, and like
there was a group of people that were doing things like that. Like that interval training, circuit training. Like my dad did all that stuff too, so I was introduced to that at a very young age.
And it was like it was great. Like you really wanted to go hard. Like when you're in that atmosphere, like you were like, oh, you wanted to go hard, but you wanted to go hard because this dude was crazy. He was absurd. He told the wildest stories. He had the wildest time. But this deathbed thing came from him, where like I'd be struggling on a rep, like right at the end or whatever it is. You're like, you better lift that. If I wasn't here, you would lift that. And then I would lift it, and I'd be like, oh man, it's kind of right, or whatever. And then like sometimes he'd be like, hey, let's test where your bench is at, do a one rep max or whatever it is. And then I would hit something and he'd be like, I'd hit that on my deathbed. And then I would just get stronger and stronger and stronger, and he would always say, I'd hit that on my deathbed.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, like, I was like, why? Like, what do you actually think? Like, just, paint the charade. Like, what do you really think? And he was like, you could wheel me under a 315 bench on my deathbed, and I'd hit it. And I was like, oh. And I believed him. Like, I really think he was serious.
Uh-huh.
He used to always talk about how he'd set his coffee cup on his peg. This is where I rest my coffee cup. So he was just like meathead like that.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's where that comes from, by the way.
No, like something to do. There's some ego in there, like a confidence in your training and your abilities.
Yeah.
That you have to have if you want to do well.
Yeah.
And you want to grow. It's like you got to have that some sort of confidence or ego there. So.
Yeah. He also used to tell this story where he had 2 daughters, and he was like, JB, I just want to let you know that don't let me catch you looking twice. You're my daughter. I will go to jail. And I was like, what? He's like, I'll go to jail for 3 to 5. Felonious assault means nothing to me. My family means everything to me. 3 to 5, that's easy. That's light work. And I went, I'm sorry. Okay, please, can I come back tomorrow? Type of thing. And his daughters were like not even home. They were like,
yeah.
It was hilarious. But that's another Mr. Woody euphemism or whatever it's called that I use to this day.
That's cool. That's funny. This guy sounds like a character.
Like 3 to 5. I'll do 3 to 5. Like, hurt my children. Like, I'll do 3 to 5. That's easy. That's light work. I mean, I probably say it once a week. It's hilarious. I haven't talked to Mr. Woody in like 10 years since I moved down here to do ministry. Yeah, I hadn't seen him in forever. He used to have shirts, Woody's Weights, on the back. It said, that which does not kill you makes you stronger. Like, that was his mentality.
Classic.
Like, all day.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Gotta kind of have that mentality when you're training in the CrossFit gym, too.
It was very helpful for me.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that.
No. And
it's not for everybody, I guess.
I would venture to say it's probably just not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But there is something strange about this place that is for everyone, though. Like, it stands for everyone,
mm-hmm.
then has specific pockets of it that are not for everyone.
That often get, like, called out online. Like,
as if
it's the whole thing.
Right. As if it represents the whole. And that's not true.
Sounds pretty familiar to me.
I'm not, and, that's a pitfall that is easy to fall in, But I think that's a little bit of what we try to do, like, especially, like, in our friendship, we try and say, like, hey, or just avoid pitfalls, right? Just via verbally processing, whatever it is, like,
yeah.
Hey, what do you think about this? Like, do you think I should do this? Do you think that's real? Do you think that's true? Is this worth meditating on?
There's an openness there too. Like,
know?
there's an idea that you might be wrong.
For sure.
Like, and that openness thing needs to be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if it's not there, you're never going to change.
Right.
Not to change it. I mean.
Well, you want to grow. You want to grow. You want to change. You want to evolve.
Yeah.
You want to be ready for the next year's test. That's hilarious. That statement.
I think you have to grow, because I think that's what it's about.
Yeah. Do you think the CrossFit Games champion wins the year after if they didn't grow or get better, or do you think Justin Medeiros' level of fitness this year will enable him to win next year?
Depends on if he grows this year.
No, I mean just now. Like, say he's this. Say he's this person.
I think eventually it would catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah, eventually it would definitely catch up.
Well, it didn't seem like he was that far ahead this year, though.
I've never understood how athletes can say, "Oh, I just took 3 months off."
I've never
understood that.
Yeah.
Never. I don't get it. I never will. I can't. If I take 3 months off, I won't come back. I don't know. I'll try, but I will never be at that same level.
Yeah, he really believes this too.
Am I wrong?
I can't.
Tell me where I'm wrong.
I can't say that you're wrong. I've always wanted you to try.
You've always thought that I should take 3 months off, and I would feel better.
I've wanted you to try it.
I can't.
But not at the expense of you not coming back. So like when you're like, if I do that, you know, like I'm probably gonna be out. I'm like, well, don't do that then. Just keep doing this type of thing. But yeah, I remember suggesting, you know, hey Ben, why don't you take 2 weeks off after the games?
I've taken weeks off.
Right.
Like I've taken.
When you won, you took a week and travel off.
Yeah.
But
my honeymoon took a week off.
True.
When I got back, it was awful.
Right. But how fast does it come back?
They came back.
I mean,
but I think more than that. For me, more than that.
Didn't you get married in 2014?
Yeah, it was the same year that it all kind of happened at the same time. The games.
You took a week. Took a week off.
Took a week off. No, it was 15. It was 15.
No.
No, it was 14.
No, you got married in 2014.
Yeah. I know this.
But that's a weird thing. That is a little bit of something that you've never been able to say. I think that's true.
I've always got that mindset of wanting to grow, and it might be a flaw, but it's okay. I don't look back on it and regret anything.
No, not at all. No, I've always wondered that. You want to talk about the Morning Chocolate article?
Sure.
Do you
think this was a decent segue into it?
Well, it seems to be right in that same vein.
Okay.
I think.
Got a lot of comments. I don't know why. I just saw that had a ton of comments.
What?
The Morning Chocolate article.
Oh, for real?
The article said it was.
Oh, I didn't look at it. On the Instagram?
Someone sent it to me. Yeah, on the Instagram. Someone sent it to me. So the article was. Was it talking about the Czech Republic? Can you find it or? Yeah, it was basically the title of the article said it was about CrossFit and church, and it was saying in some countries, the country where CrossFit is replacing the church.
Right.
Yeah, it was talking about the Czech Republic.
Oh, it is. I'm sorry.
It said according to 2017 survey, 76% of Czech Republic citizens, which is an old survey, that's 5 years ago, claim to be atheist, which the country manager thinks could be contributing to the steady growth of CrossFit. Said that sense of feeling you get from walking into a CrossFit gym, there's someone who knows your name and is interested in you, and that is something you cannot find in that many places. So they were relating CrossFit to the church and saying that it was growing in this country because there were 76% atheists in the country.
Where do you want to start?
Like 470 comments or something like that.
That's why.
But it was probably just people yelling at each other about not understanding God and back and forth between arguments that don't really make any sense.
Right.
But we always talk about it here.
Lots of defensive Christians on this thread. Personally, I absolutely love this. CrossFit has always felt like my church, just without the judgment, oppression, dangerous fairy tales. You are a silly person. You're so silly. CrossFit tells you a fairy tale every time. Come to this gym, work as hard as you can because you're gonna be the best that you can be, and maybe one day, if you the best you could be, this thing.
CrossFit Games champion. Yeah, or better in your open, or better in the regional. Yeah,
silly people. But granted, they might not have somebody to sit down and talk with and explore ideas with. Is this person exploring ideas? Who knows?
I would say no.
Or
at least they're stuck in what they believe. They've already fit something into that hole that they had, where the openness might normally reside. So where you might be a little bit more open towards a subject, they've already shoved something in there, and it cannot ever be removed, or it's very difficult to remove.
Right. Yes. That's a thing that most people would disagree with you on, or they would at least they disagree face value, and then it's like, hey, what do you actually think about this idea? And the idea that you just sort of put up is like, hey, is there a void in everyone's life? Is there... Christianity says there's, we'll call it a God sized hole. And what, nothing can fill it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think of I saw this quote on I follow a couple philosophical Instagram pages.
Yeah.
It just make me think. I like it makes me think. And one of the posts said something like, if God didn't exist, man would create him. I just thought it was really interesting.
Okay.
Because it's like, this is exactly what this is pertaining to, that article.
Correct.
Right? The atheist doesn't believe.
Right, because the next article is like, hey, let's
create it.
Well, let's create the ultimate CrossFit God. Is Tia the best ever? Ever. Anyone.
Is that why that argument is interesting?
That's why you just described. That statement just described that. Philosophically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
It has to. Because, man, that's a long conversation. I'll end it. We'll segue back to what we were talking about and get away from that one. That's inevitable. Now that there's enough sort of greatness in the space, it's like, well, let's tier the greatness now. Let's tier the champions. And is there a champion of champions?
Mm-hmm.
Do you need a champion of champions?
And when you're saying this, I'm trying to clarify. You're saying this because we would be, if we did that, if we went down that route, we would try to be describing the best of the best, the highest of the highest, the thing that you should be looking towards as the ultimate good.
It's the easiest thing to look at. It's what you want to look at.
Mm-hmm.
It's why your attention is so caught up in it. It's why articles like that exist. It's why I bet you whoever wrote that article had the best time writing it. Because you're legitimately focusing on the best of the best. Like you're moving beyond and into a new transcendental space of Tia is the GOAT. Dope, cool, I'm with it. That'd be great. I mean, that could be a conversation we could have. For instance, when Hiller made his video, I immediately text you afterwards and went, I bet you the conversation about this video is less about its content, because it's more hard to get past whether or not the video should be made than focusing on what the video was about. Should the video exist? That article, nobody is questioning whether or not that article should exist. Why? Now, why is the conversation? And I know this is true because yesterday I listened to the Savant podcast where they got on, they chopped it up. And
were they talking about
10 minutes,
article?
10 minutes in, Savant and Hiller and the other dude are talking about, Savant's essentially like, I don't know if you should have made the video. That came out. That was verbally said.
Oh, okay. So
should the video exist?
So that's where you're getting this question from.
Well, no, that's where I thought that before I heard Savant say it.
Mm-hmm.
But clearly, that's is it good?
Should the video exist? Should someone
Should you have done that? Right.
Should someone criticize the person that's at the top?
Correct.
Whether or not it's deserved or undeserved.
Sure.
I don't know. It's an interesting conversation.
It's a hard one.
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
And I don't think there really is a right answer. It was made.
Mm-hmm.
Should he have made it? And that's where it gets into the why did you make it? What's the purpose? What's its purpose? Is it going to produce something? Is it positive?
Well, you probably have to go down that. You probably first have to go down that road. What does it produce?
Right.
Because I think that's the metaphor that's used all the time. Is judge something by its fruit.
Right.
I only say it because it's true.
Mm-hmm. Right. Is it sowing seeds of
Okay, we can go down. We want to go down that.
Sure.
That
Well,
path of,
I mean, if you want to,
you know,
or we can stick where we are.
judge it by its fruit. It's like, well, do you assume that all the athletes at the games are clean? Are you assuming that the testing is good enough to catch everybody at the games? That
No.
might be, you know, cheating or taking performance-enhancing drugs.
I do not think that testing is adequate. I do think.
But there are people that would say, "Shut up! They're testing people. Therefore, it is perfect."
Yeah, that's
Until
why.
proven otherwise, it is perfect.
And I only listened to the first 20 minutes of the podcast. I didn't listen to the rest of it. So they may get into this, by the way. That's why I think it needs to be made.
Because, I mean, what? There's inherent corruption inside almost every other facet of human life, so why wouldn't it exist in this space? Because this space isn't any different than, what, anything else?
No, it is. It's not
no
any different.
It's no different than a giant company or corporation
Right.
whose, you know, the insiders are trading their stock and making money off of it, or, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. They know something that somebody else doesn't, and they make a ton of money off of it, or they cheat somebody else out of a bonus or a raise or whatever. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, this stuff exists everywhere. Why wouldn't it exist in the CrossFit space? Is that fair?
100%.
So therefore, the video is okay. Like it needs to be. This
I
stuff
think
needs
that
to be
alone-
talked about, because if it's not talked about, it's like, let me sweep all of this stuff under the rug, and we're not ever going to talk about it again. Like, nope, can't talk about that.
No, exactly, and that's the general conversation going on in the world right now. Are there things you're not allowed to talk about? Are there things you're not allowed to make fun of? Are there people you're not allowed to scrutinize? Are there ideas that are so protected that they are enshrined in what is that space anyways? If you're not allowed to be critiqued or corrected or instructed.
Really good direction, because I think we're still talking about this article.
Yeah.
And I think that this is what you're getting at, is that it's that space that church is supposed to fill.
It's the only thing that can fill it.
Yeah.
There's
It's some sort of religious belief
yes.
that you can't let go, that you have to hold on to, that you cannot, that if you let go, it will change your world, or like your mentality towards everything, or make you rethink and reshape everything that you know.
Yep.
And if I dive into those waters, I might hurt myself, or it might be really difficult, or it might be challenging, or it's the unknown, or I don't know, all of these things.
Yeah, the other day I was talking to this person that just got their NASM certification, personal training certification, and they know that I like to do CrossFit and yada yada yada, and they're like, CrossFit is dangerous. It puts people who are not ready to do certain exercises doing level 5 exercises. What are you talking about? What's up? Level 5? What's up? All right, but I let them continue, and then I wanted to say, how many people have chronic back pain from sitting all day? And just watch them go, I don't know. And then say, do you think sitting is more dangerous than CrossFit? And hear them say, no, I don't think sitting is more dangerous than CrossFit. And then being able to just bring up example after example of how sitting is worse for you than CrossFit. And that's the majority of the world and how they operate and make money and produce. They're not even producing things, they're just trading or in hyper reality anyways. But that I digress about that one. But
Video.
but for real though, what's more dangerous? Sitting or doing CrossFit? What injures more people every year? Driving or doing CrossFit?
Yeah, eating poorly.
It's just asinine to me that would be the thing that prevents you from seeing clearly, I guess. I don't know. Like, trying to teach somebody who hasn't deadlifted in a long time how to deadlift is dangerous. It's too dangerous. And it's like, that person that's unable to deadlift is unable to deadlift because they sit for 10 hours a day. Like this. Like,
And yeah, right, and they've lost their ability to move their body like they could when they were younger, or
Correct.
something like that.
Right.
That's something to do with like that a person's ability to assess problems is like, you know what I mean? Because like you just said they couldn't deadlift. That person might believe they can't deadlift just because anatomically they're not built for it. However, you are built to pull, like pick something up from the floor. Like at one point in your life, you could probably get into a decent position. Why do you think you changed that position?
And that's the thing that's most fascinating about me about this space. Like, it's so fascinating to me, is that once was, now can't. Can I get back?
Yeah, it's like a call back to something before you, like before in your past or in your. I don't know. It feels like what we're doing here with like the CrossFit Games stuff. It's like I'm calling back on the past CrossFit Games, and I want it to be like that again. Not because I want the past to perpetuate forever, because I don't. That's stupid. But I want the things of the past, the good things, to be retained.
Would you call that redemption?
Yeah, you could call it that.
What are a couple of other words that like come to mind? That was the first one for me, where it's like you like redeeming something seems to be so much more valuable than canceling it.
It seems to be a good pattern.
It seems to be the pattern of
Yeah.
the world, is that something is redeemed, not destroyed.
Tossed away and discarded.
Right. Like that's what it says in the gym. Hey, hey Danny, come in. You're on a 200-pound weight loss journey. This is the place to do it. Come be redeemed. Come let your body be redeemed. Like just the physical nature of not having to carry 200 extra pounds around. Like,
and at the same time, that might do the same thing up here. Revitalize his mind.
100%.
Bring him back to something that he had missed in the past.
Yep.
That he didn't. That he might have let go of. That.
Or they.
So hard to get back. Feels like he couldn't ever get it back. But was able to do it through something, right?
Right. And it's like and it's pretty practical too, that you would have something like this that's able to do that for you. That like it does a little transcending thing too, where you come in and you come in to just redeem your physical body in the sense that it's overweight. And in the process, what do you get back? The fruit that is born from that journey is like
good.
Tenfold. It's good. It's good. Yeah, and it's tenfold to just the original purpose. What other where else does that happen?
On maybe I was thinking about that today. Maybe sports teams.
Immediately think of sports teams.
Like military units.
Oh, I gotta cut you off. Yes, I saw on Instagram yesterday. I think SportsCenter posted it. Everyone should go and look at this, because this is the world that I do ministry in, which is usually it's like a space where kids are usually in a place where they are aimless. And because of that, they just aim at each other. It's the easiest target. And so they build community around beating each other up, tearing each other down, and then saying...
Maybe the thing closest to you.
This closest thing to you, and then saying, like, if you have what it takes, you'll stay around even though you're getting beat down. You're going to be tested by fire, and that's going to keep you around, because now I know you're going to be loyal, and now I know you can take the punches, and now I know you can do this thing. However, what happened was it tells a story, and who knows how accurate the story is, but I like this type of story, the archetype of this story, which is Mike Tomlin, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, pulls his car over because he sees a group of kids, young boys, fighting. And then the video is him running them through football drills, and all of them are in unity, let's say, aimed at a specific thing, which just took chaos and put it into order via a ladder drill session.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like and the world would look at that group of kids sort of from the outside from the right camera angle before the drills and say, that group of young men don't have anything to aim at and therefore will not be successful, and they'll actually fall victim to, and then fill in the blank to whatever it is. And we can write them off. We know that they're not going to be in society producing. They'll probably be fill in the blank, whatever it is. But it took a person pulling their car over and getting a ladder out to stop the chaos.
No, but what is that person doing? It's like a similar thing to a CrossFit gym when the person that walks in is 400 pounds. You don't judge them. You don't tell them don't show up here. You know, it's like you listen to them, you talk to them, you understand where they are currently, and then you give them a goal, or you help them reach their goal that they have a vision for, right? So like you're drawing out the best inside of them. You're not preying on the thing that you might perceive to be whatever you imagine in your head. Like you're drawing out the best in them. You're having hope, or you're looking forward with them.
Yeah. Like
you're walking alongside them. I'm trying to find better language for it.
No, all of it's good. Like you're holding their hand. Like you could imagine childhood, like growing up. You can imagine babies.
I'd say you're
kids.
Loving them. You're
that's
caring for them.
So that's the thing that's like the language that I care most about, specifically, is like, hey, go join a CrossFit gym. You'll find a place where you're loved.
Yeah.
I've never said that before. I don't describe this that way to people. However, it's what it is. But I also am like, hey, young man, you don't have anything to do. Go join a team. You'll be loved. Like, and you could comment on this video. Comment below. Why do you think that's not true? Cool. I actually will read them, and I'll take them in, and I will address them too. I'll address them personally. I'll journal about this. I will meditate on this. But I think this is like, I think it's one of those things truer than true. That matters more than you could ever imagine. Is the person that takes an interest and then says, hey, why don't you, hey, come join me and let's aim at this. And then you aimed at something, you tried your hardest, you did your best, you came to a conclusion, and then either you re-aim it at, you go through your whole Kairos and you get back to this point, and you're like, okay, do we aim at the same thing, or do we aim at the next thing? Was that a noble goal? Do we try again? Or was that not a noble goal? We need to move on to the more noble goal. Great. I'm with it. It's kind of like we have the movement of the month. That's a noble goal. Hey, we're all going to focus on this one noble goal in the midst of being in this space, focusing on a broader noble goal. And, oh, by the way, hey, all of this patterns, mimics this thing, this God-sized hole.
Yeah. That
you might be trying to fill here. That does it pretty well.
Yeah.
Until it doesn't. And then what?
Well, until it doesn't, because you've described like this, you might have a goal within a goal, within another goal, and you might think that that's it.
Right.
If you're not open to the idea that there might be something even further than that,
right,
then you'll never see it.
And
if you don't ever see it, you might be missing the entire point of the whole journey. So it's like, let me try in my head to sit down as openly as I can and imagine the furthest possible goal, furthest possible thing that I should try to become here on the earth. It's like, yeah, CrossFit fills a version of that. Like some version, some inner concentric ring.
Yeah.
But like, let me step outside of that and outside of that, and where then do you go? I think people have been thinking about this for thousands of years, right?
Oh yeah, man.
It's like they've come up with a pretty accurate representation of what that is with the picture of Christ.
Yeah. And I think that's why all the comments in the Morning Chocolate article are sort of the way that they are. Like, it's like it was fun for me to go through and read them, and I was a little mean to that girl, and in what she said, but I don't feel like I would be mean to her face, but I would push back a little bit, and I would ask the questions. I would try and do it in question form though. Like I wouldn't try and like come out with overt statements, like you're wrong, like or something like that. I would just say something like, "What fairy tale do you think CrossFit tells? What fairy tale do you think you're living by right now? You know, if you're going to describe this historical book, the Bible, as dangerous fairy tales, what myth or narrative do you live by? And do you think it has no dangers? Because that's not possible. Like your story's going to have an antagonist, a protagonist, a hero, a villain,
conflict.
Like that's the nature of this thing.
It's the nature of reality.
It's
when
the
you start
pattern of
searching
reality,
for
right?
what reality is, I think you get a lot of the answers. That's why when we talk about the hyper reality thing all the time.
Dude, it's been coming up a ton recently.
It's really good language for the world that we live in. It's so hard to figure out what's reality and what's hyper reality. Meaning what is actually and what is a deviation from that, like sugar and refined sugar or something like something as simple as that.
Yes.
You know, like what am I doing when I put this other thing in my food versus eating a natural thing that comes out of the ground. And even then, it's like, is this thing that's grown out of the ground genetically modified to be a certain way, to be sweeter, to be more? I could sell more of them or something like that. Like it's so the rabbit hole is so deep.
Capri Sun.
Oh yeah, I think that article.
Capri Sun fueled my childhood.
I drank so many of them.
Just gets found out to be contaminated with some type of household cleaner.
Sure, and be as generous as they can. That might have just been a batch of them. Someone might have been cleaning the wrong things and didn't realize that was going to be used for something. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Again, it's not always there, but I would imagine that a lot of people would have had to complain or say that this.
All right, so that was nice. That was very nice of you to say. All right, that was an accident. I got in a long argument with a lawyer last summer about how harmful GMO food is to the human body. They're like, that's not true. It's not provable.
It's not provable. That's
it's
always
what everyone comes back to, and I'm like,
just that's not science.
Just think. Think for a second. Like, just one. You don't think that genetically modifying that thing could harm you?
Well, it's like you don't take it. It's the concentric rings inside of rings. You don't think that there's something outside of that science viewpoint that might exist that you don't know yet.
Yeah.
Like, you know how many things we don't know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of going down the rabbit hole, but
do it.
I mean, we don't understand our brains. We don't understand our consciousness.
I don't think they understand anesthesia.
We don't understand our dreams. We don't understand hardly anything about.
They don't understand how a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. I'm being dead serious, bro. Nobody knows what happens in the cocoon.
There's so many things in nature, though, that we just, like, for example, that we have no idea. We really don't know.
Not at all.
Really have. We might say we know. We might think we know. But I'm like, that's just your best guess at the moment. Like, that might change in 100 years. The equation for gravity
has changed over the last 100 years. I think 8 times.
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
8.
Yeah, I don't want to go down that.
No, JB, the gravity is consistent. I'm like, bro, tell that to everyone that's been studying it for the last 100 years and all of the dissenting voices.
It might give you your best guess at what you might think it is currently in this time period that we're living in, because it's so hard to understand. Like 5 years now, 5 years from now, let alone 100 years from now, let alone 300 years from now. It's like the scales that we're talking about. It's like the change 1 degree, and you miss by 50 feet. You know, it's like it's a tiny little change. But for everybody sitting here saying that you can control all of these outcomes in the future, and by making this one change now, you're going to save the world in 50 years. Right. Like, do you really think you're that smart?
Yeah.
Like, that's arrogance.
Right.
That's pride. That's actually one of the biggest, it's like the first thing that you should probably look at.
Dude, I am slowly remembering, like I had a moment the other day where I was just like, where like my ego just like overtook my actions, and like I got through that moment and like was in my car driving and was like, wow, what just happened? You know, like it just felt weird. It was very strange. It was a strange space to be back in.
You say back in, like you had experienced that and didn't want to be there again.
Well, I felt like I was driven by that for a long time until I wasn't, until I believe.
Oh man, I was talking about it this morning. Like what spirit do you embody when you live on a day-to-day basis?
Right.
Because you embody spirit.
Yes.
You might not think of it that way.
No, it's weird. I talked about this 2 hours ago to somebody. I told them
I was talking about it this morning.
That's wild. I was talking about, you know, I mean, I can't, you know, talk around this as if this isn't a Christian point, but it was.
No, but I think it was like, you call it a Christian point, but it's like, where'd it come from? It came from like thousands of years ago. People would describe things this way.
Yeah.
Because it was the most accurate way to describe them.
Right.
I can't describe it as like something scientific. Like I didn't have science back then.
Right.
But now we all see the world in this one way.
Mm-hmm.
And to look at it another way is a fairy tale. Or to look at it another way is like, is a fiction. Like it's just completely made up.
Right.
And
anything
like something
outside
of the
science,
past.
right?
Yeah. But it actually might be the most real thing. Again, we might be confusing reality and hyper-reality. Because when you go through your day, like when you said you had that moment, you're embodying something that exists in you that you don't understand.
True.
I don't understand. People don't. I mean, they might say they understand. It might be like, oh, you did.
Well, I actually know the spirit I carry.
Okay.
Like.
And you might know it very well, right?
No, I do know what it is, and I know how I know what it is because it is the fruit that comes from that is like very evident just inside of me, like welling up inside me. And I know the spirit that I carry with me is the spirit of encouragement. I know when I'm the most healthy me, I'm an encourager. Like, to a fault. Like I'm gonna encourage the Aldi checkout person to the nth degree. Like, I'm going to gas them up so much. Like, I will leave and they'll go, that was a little special. And I don't even care if they're saying, it's not even like he's special. It's what just happened to me, for me, was special.
Because when you act a certain way, when you embody that spirit and when you pour it out, that person senses that, right? And
yeah.
You've experienced that where you've met people that have been a certain way, and you question. You're like, what just happened? What did I just experience?
Right.
And how is that so different from what I do on a day-to-day basis? And do I want to be that way?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, do I want to change in that direction?
Right. Which is fun. It's fun for me to know, and I know, and it's good litmus tests. Or when I'm like, man, bro, I'm making fun of a lot of people right now. Like, that is what is happening. Like, I'm being very negative right now. That's not my natural. Like, it's just not my natural place to be. Something is causing that, and I know that for sure. Like, almost like I know when my blood sugar is low. Like, it's so clear as day. I know exactly what my body is doing. Like, and it tells me immediately. Like, that's good. Like, you need to know when your gas tank is low or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Like, you need your metrics, you know, but most people aren't thinking about that.
You learn that by listening.
Yeah.
And paying attention.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Like, you really have to pay attention. You have to listen. You have to understand. Like, you have to seek to understand. If you don't seek to understand, you know, if you don't knock on the door,
right,
nobody can answer the door, kind of thing.
Right.
But you have to be open to what you receive as well. If you just shut it down and just kick it away and push it away, it's like it's not ever gonna. You can't receive it if you're not open to it.
Right. See, I think that the gym is meant to be like a cocoon space. That you're supposed to come in as your caterpillar and leave as your butterfly.
Go through metamorphosis.
You go through metamorphosis,
and nobody knows how you do it.
Right, and I think that's what everybody's trying to put their hand on, and the reason why I always say that God is the only thing that that fills that space, that sort of becomes that answer, is because there's a really you Bible scholars out there or atheists out there. There was no way to say God's name. There still isn't a way to say God's name. And like Yahweh is your best attempt to say God's name. Like human's best attempt to say God's
Like it was almost so holy that you weren't even to say it.
Right, like it is Yod Hey Vod Hey is like how it's spelled. Like doesn't matter. That's not a name. Those are like 4 consonants, shoved together or whatever. You can't describe it. You can't say it. It's what happens inside the cocoon that is beyond your understanding or comprehension, but it just so happens to be this metamorphosis that happens, and it actually gets to happen daily. But it could also happen, momentarily throughout the day. It can happen every minute, every hour, every 24 hours, every week, every month, every year, lifetime. Who knows? Who knows the metamorphosis that's taking place in you, around you, through you, for you, whatever. But man, is this the place that happens? It's like one of the most obvious places that it happens. It's the reason that Czech Republic is like, hey, we might not be opening more churches and we might be opening more CrossFit affiliates. Is it doing the same thing? If it's doing the same thing, is it okay?
We don't even know what happens in it. It's hard to describe what's in it. So I thought of devil's advocate immediately, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone would say, well, we don't understand what metamorphosis is yet. And I would argue, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Just if you understand metamorphosis, it doesn't mean that it originated by human hands. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Just because you can describe the process by which it happens doesn't mean you still, there's still, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Well, I would just rebuttal that talking.
It makes sense, like it's intelligible, like if you understand it,
right.
Like you can understand it, but that doesn't make it this thing that's separate from God.
No, not at all.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's still a greater.
Correct.
It doesn't exclude God. There's still a greater thing out there that exists, even if you explain it all.
Yeah, that just made me think that it's just one more
Maybe
thing for you to mess up. It's one more thing for you to GMO.
Yeah.
It's like one more thing for you to put the Terminator gene in, and now you're eating watermelon without seeds instead of watermelon with seeds. Like.
Makes me think of like my dad always says, all the technology that's happened throughout his 30 or 40 years of working has only made his job more difficult now. Like it hasn't really made it easier.
Mm-hmm.
Like the quality has declined over time. It's interesting because we have so much technology, but it's just caused kind of more problems, it seems like.
Right, which
it's obviously solved problems, and it's obviously a good thing. This doesn't need to be said.
Right.
In cases, but then in other cases, it makes things more difficult. Like you're always checking your phone. We got our phone sitting right here. We're getting calls from everybody.
It is pretty wild. I'm interested in transformations. I guess I'm interested most in redemption, I think, more than anything else. Like the cocoon of redemption, the metamorphosis of redemption.
Well, and you're right. The gym does something like that. Like this pattern is the same. It's the same pattern. You walk in, and you walk out a different person. And I do this, like you said, a daily basis, an hourly basis, by a workout to workout basis, over the course of 5 years, however you want to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But like you've changed. You've changed by coming into a CrossFit gym and being in there for an extended period of time.
Man, you can't tell me this isn't true. I know you've walked into the gym at some point when your spirit is just low, mean, angry, upset. You entered into that space. You got your hour of work in. You're leaving that space transformed. Like it's like your mind has been renewed. You might be thinking clearer about the bad news you got at work or whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a microcosm. Like that is legitimately a pattern of a relationship with God.
Yeah. And right.
That, I mean,
you might go home and you might forget it.
Right.
You know, and you might fall right back into the same thing that you were in the day before you went to the gym or whatever.
Right. And then this is the thing. It's like, oh, JB, you just said relationship with God, but that actually resembles the relationship I actually just have with my dog. I'm like, well, that just means your relationship with your dog resembles a relationship with God. It's legitimately, it's what we're saying. There's the highest thing. And then everything else will pattern that below. Mm-hmm. It flows from above down. And it will follow that pattern all the way down. And if you want to say the highest pattern doesn't exist, cool. But if you pay attention to the pattern you're in and you get to the next one, you're going to get to the next. It's inevitable unless you say, no, mm-hmm. I'm not going to go to the next level. I will stay here at this point. And
that's to your own, that there are results of that.
It's like,
it's like kind of the person that becomes complacent or becomes...
Well, the gym is another perfect example
of that. What happens when you don't try to excel in the gym? What happens when you just stagnate and you're just like, this is what I'm doing today. I like doing this. I'm not going to try to get up on the wall and do a handstand.
What are banded pull-ups for?
Banded pull-ups are for weak people. I'm never trying a banded pull-up. It's like, okay.
Sure.
Well, then you're not going to get better at your pull-ups.
Right.
You might. But your progress might be really slow.
Like, how excited is the person that gets rid of their band?
Probably pretty excited.
That's the thing that I'm saying. Like, your next, that next level awaits. But that next level is always just a closer level to the ultimate pattern. Mm-hmm. But to think that stops is silly. That's where
exist.
Right. Or that doesn't exist, or that's a fairy tale, and you can dismiss it in so many ways.
You can dismiss it all day. How do you think it's a fairy tale? What do you think you're doing right now, moving into this next level? What do you think that is? Is it just progress?
Right.
Describe to me what that progress is then. Yeah. And why you should progress in the direction that you're progressing. Mm-hmm. What is it, towards something good? What do you mean by that? Why that good direction? Go down these holes and figure this stuff out, because if you think about it openly,
yep.
You end up with God. You end up with the highest possible good.
Right. And we're calling that God.
And my purpose is to try to get towards that, move towards that.
Yes.
Move in that direction. That's why we've described CrossFit and the CrossFit Games and the CrossFit Games champion in the ways that we have.
Right.
You can go back and listen to the other podcasts we did, but we described it in exactly that way. People at the CrossFit gym will be working towards becoming like T. Clark Toomey.
Yes.
It's like...
Noble goal.
Mm-hmm. Not noble. Noble.
Haha. Hey, we'll take it. Cup dirt. I'm not beyond that. I like this place, man.
Yeah.
And to be critical of the church and to be critical of that space, it was hard to enjoy church. It doesn't have what this has currently. It's stagnant. It's the games, but it's 2,000 years. Imagine that. Imagine critiquing a 2,000-year old thing and being like, that's a fairy tale. 2,000 years, dog. You think
might have changed a little bit.
Yeah. And you don't think there's some ups and downs, right?
Yeah. But it's a redemption idea, right?
Yes.
Can you redeem it, or are you the one?
Right.
Are you able to?
Imagine walking to the gym and looking at the whiteboard and being like, man, this workout sucks. That's me often. But it's different than saying, man, the person that wrote this workout sucks. And all the people that do this workout suck. And, oh, by the way, the whole program that produced the person and the other people doing this suck. And, oh, by the way, everybody that's doing this, programming this here and in other places are all believing a myth. And
everybody who's done it that since it started is the same way.
They suck too.
Mm-hmm. Cancel.
F them. Yeah, it's like... I mean...
Zero good
comes
from it, right? I mean, like that. Yeah.
So
if you take those parallels from the church and apply them like you just did to the gym, you will understand. Maybe your eyes will be open to what we see.
Yeah.
And the potential and the possibility
Right.
of redemption of it.
Right. All right, here you go. I will end here with sort of like my input of this. I care about this so that when you get in your car and you leave the gym, you're capable of stopping by that field where the boys are fighting, getting, 7 random things. Like, you might not have a ladder to train with, like Mike Tomlin did. But you have something in your back pocket or tucked away to where you could say, you could affect change. You could just give them something to aim at, whatever it is.
And you can do it in a way that nobody else can.
Right.
That's the beauty of it. That's what I love about it. That's what I tell my coaches. We had coaches meetings this week, and that's what I told them. It's like, we can talk about the right way to run a class.
Yeah.
And the right way to treat people and this, that, and the right way to scale movements and the right way to be and move and all this. But I can't do it in the way that you do it.
You're right.
Like, I want you to do it in the way that you do it, because
That's
you
awesome.
relate to people better than I do.
That's
in
so
a different
great.
way. I mean,
Yeah.
it might be better or worse. It might be just different.
Right.
And everybody relates to people differently. It's like, why not try to use the gifts that God gave each one of those people to make your community and your gym the best place that it can possibly be.
Right.
Don't be a robot. Don't try to be like Elon Musk on the assembly line and make the same person over and over and over and over. Like, let that person coach and let the person coach the way they want to, but like, they're developing just like you're developing. Like, they're on their journey to becoming a better coach, just like you're on your journey to be a better leader, a better coach, or better whatever, athlete, anything.
Do you think there's a favorite coach of the gym?
For certain people, I'm sure there is.
Everyone has
Each
their
person
favorite
has
coach.
their favorite coach, and it's like,
so
you might try to embody the traits of that person because you would see somebody and you like the way that they are, and you want to try to be more like them, but you're going to do it in your own way. Don't do it in their way.
Right. Wouldn't you think
that's the whole idea of like being like you do you type thing, and it's like everybody loves that now. It's like, oh, just be comfortable in your own skin, who you are. Like that, you notice that idea is caught on. Like, that's where this comes from.
Yeah.
It comes from everybody has certain gifts.
Right.
And you should use those gifts, but you should also be striving towards the same common goal, right? Not just any arbitrary goal.
Right, and you already have that built in.
Look at the CrossFit gym. If you're trying to be the best 5K runner in the world, why are you at a CrossFit gym? Probably in the wrong place.
Yep.
Like CrossFit, we try to do this one thing. We are all aimed in one direction.
Yes.
Look what comes from that. Look at the community that comes from it.
Dude, it's absurd.
This is what the church is supposed to be.
Right.
That's the idea. Everybody's aimed in the same direction. I don't have to tell you what's wrong and right. You should know, just like I should know.
Right.
If we're all aiming in the same direction.
Right. It's silly for me to be. So, for like 2 weeks, I was like, man, maybe I should just let Ben do the podcast by himself. Because I know people like him more than they like me. That's obviously true. However, there are definitely going to be people that listen to this podcast that care about what I have to say, or that have listened to it, or that it mattered, or whatever it was. This is not but I'm getting at something here. There's a podcast that I listen to where clearly one of the hosts just sucks compared to the other one. Like, it's just how it goes, right? And then I started being like, I think I want to tell them, like, hey, I think you should just do that. And then I was like, would I like it if somebody said that to me? And it was said to me. Some dickhead wrote it on, like, an earlier episode and was like, man, get that other guy off the podcast. And I was like, man, that sucks to hear. But I know you don't think that.
I don't care.
And we just get to do this, right?
I mean, people can say what they want to say.
Right.
If you're judging from the outside, I really don't care what you have to say.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because I know, like, we are moving towards something.
Right.
And we're in that together, in the same sense that you might be in a CrossFit gym working towards a goal.
Yes.
And then the person at Planet Fitness might be looking at you in the CrossFit gym and say, yeah, well, that guy needs to go. That guy sucks.
Right.
You have no idea who that guy is, what he's doing, and why he's there.
Yep.
So.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's a very humbling couple of weeks, right? Just thinking and processing. And then you get back to the place of like, be the best you. Like, and that's the aim. And sometimes that's something that gets redeemed, like daily, whatever.
I think it gets redeemed also if you're doing things for the right reasons.
Yeah.
You know, like this CrossFit gym, for example. When I started this CrossFit gym, I'm not starting this CrossFit gym to do anything but try to help people that want to work towards their goals. I saw what it did for me. I saw what it did for my friends. I know what this thing can do for people around me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to open my doors and make it accessible to as many people as I possibly can that want to be here.
Right.
If you don't want to be here, you don't have to be here.
Right.
Nobody's forcing you to be here.
Right.
If you want to just stand outside, point a finger, critique, fine. But I want to I just want to share what I've learned and what I know to be true.
Yep.
That's why I share it. I think that's why we have this podcast. We enjoy looking for the reality, truth, things that matter.
Right. Pay attention. And I think that's another thing that's
caught off guard.
Right. That's been.
Don't be fooled.
Yeah.
Don't be deceived.
Bro, I love the Harry Potter story. I think it's the best story ever told.
I would love to have lunch with J.K. Rowling.
I would too. I legitimately want to ask her the conspiracy question. Did you write this? Like, did you actually write this? Or did this come from AI aliens? And you're like, wait, is that a thing? Bro, every thought under the sun has entered the space because the story is so good. I'm bringing up that, like, why I like this story because of the thing that you just said.
It's the idea, like the Peterson idea he talks about when you write, the spirit, something is coming through you into you writing on the paper or typing on the computer. You might not even know what that is,
right?
But it's expressing itself through those words on the page. It's like she drew on something, you know, and it's like she did it in a truthful way. Clearly,
right?
Everybody watched it,
right?
Everybody was drawn to it, whether they knew it or not. Like it became religion for people. You know, like it morphs itself into, it fits in these holes, like, because it's a story. It's a story. The story tells of reality. It tells of truth. It tells of
yes.
If you listen and pay attention,
it describes a pattern. It describes the pattern of the world so well, that I think if you just went and read the whole story, like you're like, you know what, JB, I don't want to know how to understand the world through a biblical lens. I wanted to know is there anything else I could read that would help me understand the world? And this is to that girl's fairy tale comment. Harry Potter.
Matrix.
Legitimately.
The Matrix is a good one.
The Matrix is a good one. You have Narnia, you have The Lord of the Rings. But you have it's tucked away, it's hidden in stories everywhere. And it's like, if you grab from that, you glean from that, you take a little bit here and a little bit there, you might start realizing that these stories that you love, the best stories that you love, all pattern themselves, mimic themselves after this one thing.
That's the concentric rings.
Yeah.
You're reading one of the inside ones.
Yes, dude.
And you're drawn to it because it represents one of the outside ones.
Yes.
You just haven't, you have to make that jump from one to the next. And the good ones are the ones that spread, that people like are drawn to naturally, inherently. Like you're like, this is a really good story. Like, why? Like, why do I like it? Why does everybody in the world like these stories? It's like, they might be naturally, maybe we were built in the image of something, you know, that we are called to, that we are drawn to, that we can see and understand, and we only see and understand it if we ask questions, if we're open, if we knock, if we seek these things out, then we might be able to understand them, but it's like it's process.
Yeah. So go to your local CrossFit gym, walk through the doors, like, knock, and you shall receive. Like, it's so wild, dude.
Yeah, and see what you change into, right?
And see what you become.
Yeah.
See what the environment helps you become. Test yourself when you leave. There you go. Man. See if you are the same type of person there outside of there. Like, you know, if you're a coach, are you the same type of person at home? Like, are you a coach that goes home and yells at his kids, or are you a coach that goes home and yells or encourages their kids?
Yeah.
You know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're
So
you're
true.
building patterns into your life, and if it doesn't come with you outside of there, then you're in a bad
I
space.
told my coaches this week, I told them something very similar. I'm like, you know, the community will reflect what you present. You know, the community will be who you are, like who you are.
Right.
Like, dude, it'll just naturally happen.
Yep.
You know, so it's like, make this a focus.
Right.
Pay attention.
Right, there are going to
Pay
be
attention to-
people
yeah.
that want to be like Vince or like Josh or Tom or Dave or you
Yeah,
Dane or Emily or
And it might not be
Georgie.
like I don't want to be like physically like them. Maybe it's physically like them, but I want to be like I want to encourage like them. I want to
Right.
you know.
Well, that's the first thing is like,
be able
oh
to give
man,
away
they're
like I've received from them.
Right.
You know, like
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah.
You know, like
yeah.
it goes so deep.
It really does, dude. This is really weird that I'm like, man, we probably should have stopped talking 30 minutes ago, but I know for a fact I could keep talking for hours.
Yeah, it's a good conversation though.
It's weird. It's a
This is what I wanted the podcast to be about
excellent,
from the very beginning.
very yeah. That's very good.
Because the coach's office is just a shadow of something else.
For sure.
You know.
Yeah, it's meant to represent a space,
Mhm.
right? It's like
Two-dimensional view of a 3D object.
yeah. That's another good one. We talk about that one for a while. Actually, let's save that. I'm gonna save that. Anything else that you want to say?
Oh, we can pick it up if you guys have comments. We'll pick it up where the comments leave us. How about that?
Yeah. Go get after it.
Yeah.
You know, this next week coming up, do something new. Do something fun. Go
Yeah,
carry
follow
100-pound.
Follow our program for a month
Right.
and see what we're doing, and then get off of it and then do your own thing. You know,
Yeah.
like just use it as an idea.
Use it once.
Yeah, that's what
Right.
that's what it's there for.
Come
It's
back
there,
and forth, right?
It's there just so that I can share my experiences. Again, like I can't do it like this other
That's a
person
great
does
point.
it. I'm just trying to share my experiences, what I've learned, because I've learned from a lot of other people, but I want to put mine out there too.
Yeah.
So do it or don't, but yeah, go to your CrossFit gym and see who you can be.
Get after it. Cheers.
Gulp.